Have you been surprised at just how brutal Israel's response has been?
Let me put it this way. A lot of my earlier videos and lectures are being kind of regurgitated and posted since then. And in so many of them, and also personal conversation that I have with people remind me how for years now I've been saying we haven't seen the worst of it. You know, every attack on Gaza where thousands were killed, attacks in other places, home demolitions, massive arrests of Palestinians. And I kept saying, you know, we're going to look back at this as the good old days. If we don't stop Israel and immediately, if we don't force a political solution that brings it down, this is going to get much worse. And now this is exactly what has happened. Now, is it possible to imagine something so horrific? No. I don't think anybody was capable of imagining this sadistic, this bloodshed. I certainly couldn't. I mean, you have to have a sick mind to be able to imagine, let alone plan and execute something that's horrific. But I've been saying for years that we have not seen the worst of it.
Do you think this is the worst of it, or do you think it can potentially get worse?
It can get worse. If we don't force an end to this genocide, there's no reason for it to end. Why would it stop? It's been going on uninterrupted for 8 decades, or close to 8 decades. Why should it stop? There's not a reason. There's no motivation for it to stop unless ending this is forced upon the perpetrators. You know, how did they end the genocide of the Jews in Europe and the Nazi occupation of Europe? Not through a ceasefire. That's not how it works.
What was your response when October 7th happened?
It was interesting. I'd sent in an article the day before, and that morning I looked at my phone about 6 a.m. and there was a message. It was Mondoweiss. They said, "Can you adjust your article because something just happened?" I thought, the Palestinians have risen once again in a way that was unimaginable and unbelievable. Now, if anybody doesn't have the historical context necessarily, this is exactly 50 years and 1 day after the October 1973 war, where Israel was attacked and surprised by the armies of Egypt and Syria. That could not have been a coincidence. There's no way in the world that could have been a coincidence. Picking that day, exactly 50 years in 1 day on the calendar. And once again, I saw an Israel that was, when it was tested, when its systems were tested, when its military and intelligence and the entire defense apparatus was tested, they failed. They're not there. They failed their own people because, of course, Israelis were in peril. And everything collapsed. I mean, the state of Israel was in total collapse, in total chaos. It's still in chaos. It still has not recovered in terms of the functioning of the state, but it was in complete chaos. It was paralyzed for weeks. And what we saw a group of fighters coming out from one of the poorest, most depressed, most economically depressed and oppressed areas in the world, where you're lucky if you have a meal a day and clean water to drink, not to mention a little antibiotic to heal a cut. And they came out of that into one of the most developed countries in the world with a massive security apparatus, where medical facilities and the economy and everything is plentiful, is the best there is. And they managed to bring it to paralysis for weeks. The media had no idea what was going on. The government was nowhere to be found. The security services were nowhere to be found. Nobody had any idea what was going on. For weeks, people were scared. Were sitting in their homes. And this is a country that boasts having this, incredible military force and intelligence, capabilities and so on. So to me, that was a huge victory. I think the Palestinians spoke up and stood up and showed the world that they not only exist, but that this entire thing called Israel is nothing more than a paper tiger.